What's up, guys? Today on Drugs and Stuff, Dave and I start out with steroids in the news. A woman was trying to smuggle steroids into a prison. She said that her son was getting picked on. After that, today we go into a full breakdown on DHB. I know we said we did last time, but we went really deep. So today we go into like a full profile of Dihydroboldenone. Then we have a bunch of listener questions. Is it a bad idea to use growth hormone if you have a family history of cancer? PEDs for joint and tendon health. Can Primo cause side effects in women? Front loading, it used to be all the rage, but is there any benefit in it? Could there be a value in using Tren at a low dose as part of your TRT plan? Plus, how did Dave and I originally meet? We'll tell that story and a lot more all right now here on Drugs and Stuff. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Drugs and Stuff podcast with David Stanley Crossland. I'm Scott McNally. All of our programming is brought to you by True Nutrition, as well as Get Azoth and Supplement Needs. David, welcome back to your program.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
We got a lot of feedback on the last episode. People trying to tell me that the word whilst was an actual word.
Yes. Well, see, people are now starting to support me and realize how tortured my life is with having to work with you.
We got a question about that, actually, about our relationship, how we met and stuff. We'll get to that later in the episode. We've had a few questions, too. If anybody wanted to ask questions, of course, we take them on the live feed here during the program. We have the Advices Radio group over at Facebook. And, of course, you can always ask them in the YouTube feed. So on that note, too, by the way, if you guys enjoy our programming, do us a favor. Give us a like, leave us a comment, all that stuff. It helps to boost us up in the algorithm.
Send us money.
Send us money. That's good. We'll take that. Okay.
Yeah.
And, of course, guys, if you haven't subscribed, we have several programs that come out each week. You can stay up to date with everything we have going on. Dave, I thought we'd start out today with a little bit of steroids in the news. So, here's the deal. I've got a story here, and they spell the word. I don't know. It's called Wales Online. It's spelled W-A-L-E-S. First of all, they misspelled that. It's W-H-A-L-E-S.
The country, not the animal.
Oh, I thought this was like featuring animals or something, but that makes a lot more sense because this story does have to do with nothing to do with Wales.
Well, they are all slightly interrelated in Wales, to be honest.
And then they also made a mistake in the heading here. It says mum, spelled with a U, mum got partner to sneak steroids to her son in prison because she was worried that he was being bullied. What's up with that? I have a feeling they got into some serious trouble for that one.
You know, what's more embarrassing, getting done for smuggling gear into a prison or your mum doing it because she thought you were getting picked on?
Oh, yeah. If he didn't get picked on before, he got
fucking getting picked on now.
yeah, he definitely got picked on after this. A mother got her partner to take a package of steroids into prison for her son because she thought he was being bullied by other prisoners, a court heard. Let's see. So she had her partner, her boyfriend. Let's see. They realized that they were being watched on camera in the visiting area as Schofield handed the package and tried to hide another.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Schofield.
Oh, Schofield?
Schofield.
S-C-H.
Yes, Schofield.
Okay. Yeah, good enough. Yeah. Schofield.
Don't even talk about pronunciation. What is it? Aluminum? You're fucking retarded.
You just said it right for the first time in your life.
No, aluminium.
What the hell is an aluminium?
Worcestershire. Not Worcestershire. Worcestershire.
Yeah, Worcestershire sauce.
No, I'm sorry, but
don't even go there.
Winds me up something chronic because he cannot say ingredients correctly.
Okay, let's get through this, Dave. Let's try to be professional for once. It says they didn't have to appear have any kind of have. Let me try that again. It did not appear to be particularly a sophisticated effort to smuggle the drugs into prison. Basically, they were in serving a prison time. There was a visiting situation. He handed one package to the prisoner under the table in the visiting room. The prisoner put it down his trousers and hid it inside his body. So what does that mean?
He shoved it up his bum. He put it in his jail wallet.
The court heard prison staff were there within seconds, and they were taken away from the visiting room. He was searched, but the package was never recovered. What?
You can't give someone a rectal examination without a court order because it's invasion of their body. So what they'd do is they'd take him into a room, strip him, make him squat. If the package didn't reveal itself, they would probably put him in his cell and wait for it to pass. But obviously they've never caught him with the package at any point. So he's got it out and he's moved it on. I mean, just so you probably won't be aware of how prison visiting works in the UK, but generally it's like a big dining hall with tables with chairs around. So the prisoner goes in and sits at the table, or the visitors go sit at the table, then the prisoners come to the table, sit opposite, talk to the visitor, and vice versa. So it is possible to pass contraband across if you're very, very sleight of hand and very careful, but it's cameraed, and there's prison guards in the area watching as well. Okay. Obviously, these weren't very slight.
Okay. Yeah, it says...
it's not like it's through a screen or anything like that. That's a closed visit. So open visits, you are allowed physical contact with the people that are visiting you.
Okay. It says that they were escorted to a waiting area, still being filmed, while the original guy who brought the packages in, they said it was obvious that they tried to dispose of a second package behind a bench. So the second package... it was found to contain 21 Class 3 steroid tablets commonly used for bodybuilding, valued between 75 to 100 pounds in the prison setting. So you're getting a lot more, obviously, just like anything else, you're going to get a lot more money for something once you're inside.
Oxymethylone can go starting at a pound a tab upwards.
Okay, wow.
And it can get into the 3, 4, and depending on availability, it can get quite expensive. So yeah, prison prices and obviously orals are particularly popular because there's no problem with needles and stuff like that. It's just a tablet.
Oh, that makes sense.
But the prices can get very high. They're very high value commodity in prison. But
are there a lot of people using steroids in prison? Like how common is it?
Definitely in the open prisons where people get access to the outside a little bit more freely.
Yeah.
So as in our prison structure, I'm not sure how it works in the States, but we have Class A, B, C, D. So D is an open prison, which effectively means you would possibly go out and work somewhere during the day, come back to the prison on the evening. You'd be allowed home at weekends. You'd even possibly be allowed off the prison grounds during the day. So it's not super strict. So obviously access to steroids in that environment is very, very easy.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Then your Class C is more restrictive, but you've got more freedom of movement within the establishment.
Okay.
But parcels would still have to, so contraband drugs would still have to be smuggled in. Quite often it's a parcel bunged over the fence, and then someone in the gardening crew would collect that, and that would then get delivered into whoever it was for, and everybody gets a bit of a backhander on the way out.
I've heard they're using drones now too.
I think they've clamped down on that. I tell you what a very common way now is for particularly for like synthetic cannabis is they'll soak it into paper.
Oh yeah.
And then they send a legal letter in on solicitor's letterhead. Now legal letters aren't opened officially by the prison, or never used to be.
Yeah.
So and then obviously what they do then is they sell the strips of paper off, and it's worth a lot of money. But steroids generally have to come in a parcel one way or another. So commonly it's over the wall, into the grounds, gardeners collect, and then bring them onto the wing, and it's distributed that way. And then as you get into B, obviously it gets much harder because you've got much less access to outside. Control's much more restricted. And then when you get into A, it's very restricted. So generally in A, you're looking at potentially probably a prison guard being involved in the supply of contraband.
Turns out nobody got in trouble for this one. It looks like
they got suspended sentences, didn't they? So they didn't go to prison; it was suspended.
Yeah.
And in part, that was because it took, I think it took nearly a year to get to trial or something. They said it waited far too long.
Okay, and that's why. Well, good for them.
The defence is probably bollocks. It's probably just what they've made up. It probably was an active, situation where they were trying to bring contraband into him, but who knows? It may have been genuine. He may have genuinely been bullied, but like any substance in prison, it's valuable.
Yeah, they said that Schofield, when he was confronted about this by the police, he immediately copped to it and was like, "Yeah, I did it." Versus Howe, the guy who was in prison, was a little more reluctant to admit anything. So he knew you better deny.
Well, if he's in the system, he's most likely got experience of the system, so probably knows you don't say fuck all. And obviously, he still ended up with some tablets because they never found the one he shoved up his ass.
That's a good point. Yeah. Huh.
The worst thing in prison?
I can imagine a lot of pretty bad things.
There's one thing in prison is when you're using an illegal mobile phone, so someone has smuggled a mobile phone in. Mm-hmm. Okay, it always stinks of shit. Because it's always been up somebody's ass.
That's a lot, man. I think about my phone. That's a lot of
phone. No, you're not putting, obviously it's a small phone, but
I wanted like an iPhone. I had like that 6 Plus S, the real big one. I like that. It's got a nice big screen you can scroll on and stuff.
Note.
Yeah, Galaxy Note, something like that. Yeah, tablet. I want a tablet.
But it's mobile phones are not that hard to get your hands on in prison.
No kidding.
Plenty of people that know they're going into prison will already have one shoved up their ass before they even come in. Wow. So if you go into court, you're going to be sentenced. You fill your back all with as much as you can.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
But if you ever use one, it 9 times out of 10 just stinks of shit.
Wow.
So you're so. Yeah, it's definitely not a pleasant experience.
Here's an interesting in addition to. So, although the prison sentences were suspended, 9-month suspended sentence, says he was ordered to complete a 15-day drug and alcohol rehabilitation treatment program.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there obviously must be some history there. So I don't know if either party has a history of drug use. Mm-hmm. So they've linked that in with the supply element and say, well, you're a drug user. Or if it's just a standard thing because it's drugs, it's like, well, we're going to teach you about what these drugs do, how they harm people and why you shouldn't do this and all that sort of crap.
Now, I've heard scenarios here where somebody gets in trouble for steroids and then they have to do like Narcotics Anonymous meetings and stuff like that. Yeah. And really it's like, it's odd because it's somebody who uses steroids, but now they're being in a classroom setting with everybody else who's been using, like drugs like crack and heroin and meth. And, it as you've stated before, it doesn't seem like it's really a valuable teaching tool for somebody who got caught with steroids.
They're getting a little bit more aware that steroid use needs a different sort of approach, but that there is an educational element to it. Mm-hmm. But what they often will put you on a UK basis, what they call ETS or some other version of that, which is then enhanced thinking skills. And it's basically a course where they discuss your thought process behind making the decisions you make rather than the actual use of the drugs themselves.
Now, I like that. And that's kind of what NA is supposed to be.
It's shit, though. I mean, honestly. All right, I'll give you an example of one they posed to us was you go into a bar. Your girlfriend sat there with a man at a bar. They acknowledge you. What do you do?
Well, you beat the man, right?
Well, You
cause
go
a scene.
over,
You get a bottle.
cause a scene, smash the table, kill him, put him in hospital,
Yeah.
beat the woman for being
Right, all that. That's in that order.
No, I mean, you go over the table, introduce yourself, all right, offer to buy a drink, that sort of thing. But no, that's wrong, because that's aggressive. What you should do is go to the bar and buy a drink and bring the drinks as a peace offering to the table, so nobody feels that. How do I know what the fuck is drinking?
Yeah.
But that was the sort of shite they came out with. So I've never been particularly impressed with a lot of these. There are certain courses run by certain individuals in certain prisons that are, quite reasonable, but a lot of them are just shite.
A bold and battle-ready focus formula that takes no prisoners and shows no mercy.
All right, listen, let's get to our listener questions, because we do have a bunch of them this week. We got a bunch of stuff that we didn't finish up from the last episode. And for starters, one thing we didn't get really in depth with, and we don't need to go crazy with it, but I did want to talk a little bit more about DHB, Dihydroboldenone. You had rated that as being one of the more powerful steroids kind of available. Let's break that one down a little bit for anybody who is maybe interested and didn't get the full scoop on the last episode.
Okay.
I was going to say, we did talk about how it can be difficult to suspend. It can be a very painful injection if it's not made properly. I feel like because of that, it can be a risk to even get involved with using it, because it may or may not be a decent shot. I know another one of our hosts, Skip, was using that, and he ended up getting a sterile abscess in his leg, which has caused him all sorts of issues. And I know I've seen it happen just with very high concentration gear that's clean, very caustic gear like propionate and similar. I've seen these things cause infections because the shots can be so painful, and I've known countless people to have really, really painful shots with DHB. So I think that's one real major concern right there. But take us a little deeper with this one, Dave.
It's also known as one-test SIP or one-testosterone, which is probably what it was more commonly known of before it. It's been around a while, and it's a bit like Trenbolone. It's one of these drugs that lost popularity, and then as the UGLs, in a search to come up with a new product, have brought out old steroids. And they're old steroids for a reason, and generally because they're a bit of a twat to live with. So it was more commonly known as one-testosterone or one-test SIP. It's now more commonly known as DHB. It is a derivative of equipoise, but that is really sort of where the comparison ends. So it doesn't act like equipoise. It's nowhere near as mild as equipoise. It's quite a powerful drug, and people will have. If you want to try and compare it to something else, probably the nearest drug to it would be Tren.
Wow, really?
It's not as harsh as, it's not quite as harsh as Tren. It's not quite as appetite suppressant as Tren. And you're going to see increasing vascularity when you're on DHB as well. But from a point of view of method of action, anecdotally, people have reported that it would seem to improve their condition and potentially some fat loss element to it. That's not stood up chemically. But as we know, that isn't always the case. And anecdotally, we do see patterns and trends emerging that sometimes do stand as being correct, even though chemically they don't seem to make sense. It's not that it's particularly harsh on liver or kidneys or anything like that, but it just seems to be harsh overall. It's not something you need to use huge dose. Don't think, when people think about EQ, they think about, minimum dose 600 meg.
Yeah, they raise the dose. They use a lot.
And so 600, it's 800 and above. Don't approach it. Even though, like I say, it's a derivative of equipoise, it would be like saying Tren and Deca are the same drug. You know what I mean? They've got the same bases, but they are completely different drugs in the way they work.
Yeah.
And DHP is very similar in that. If I remember rightly, I think its anabolics about 200, and its androgenics about 100, but I might have got them the wrong way round.
Okay.
So I'm just going off memory here. But it's a world apart from EQ, and you're going to go on the lower side in dosing rather than the higher side.
Okay.
No, I would say probably about 50% of people that use DHB will get to a point in the cycle where they dump it because it's just such of a pain in the arse to live with, quite literally. Or they'll get to the end of the cycle and say, you know what, yeah, fine, I got strong, it was a powerful drug, but I'm not living with that again because I felt like shit for most of that.
Okay. Huh.
And that's generally what I see as feedback from it as a compound. I think probably at a lower dose it would have more place, but people don't tend to run it at lower doses. I think if you were running sort of, the 100 mg on an acetate base or propionate base, should I say, maybe 2-3 shots a week, you'd probably find it quite beneficial. Whereas you start going into the bigger doses, and then generally it does come as an ananthate, so it is quite a slow mover. Okay. It comes as quite a slow half-life. But I think the big problem with it is really it's just its overall stress build up makes it uncomfortable to live with.
Yeah. I found even though it is a standard, like I found it that even though the ester would be the same as say a long acting test,
Cypionate. It's based on cypionate. That's its half-life. So.
Yeah, but even so, I found that it still took a long time. I used it twice. I found that it took a lot longer to kick in. Like, I mean, I'm on it for 6 weeks before I even noticed anything. Like I was asking, oh my gosh, there must be something wrong here. I was at 400 milligrams. Once it did kick in, it was strong. But then I felt the same way later. I did it again at 600. And then I've talked to other people who had a very similar experience where they took my word, they started using it, and they got like a month in and they're like, you sure this is going to work? And then finally 2 months in, they're like, oh yeah, this is working really well now.
Yeah, I mean, if it was available as an acetate, I think it would be a much more versatile drug.
Yeah.
Or a propionate. If it was available as a fast-acting ester, I can see it being a very useful compound.
Yeah.
Because it's only available in a cypionate ester, I find it less versatile. And it's one of those problems where by the time you actually feel it kicking in, and most people say around the 4 to 6 weeks mark is before you really start to feel it.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that long after that before you start to feel a bit shitty with it. And then you've got another 4 weeks before you're getting rid of the shit out of your system.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say 300-400 mg is where you want to be. When you start pushing up to the 6 and above, you're going to start finding it's just not worth running at those doses, personally.
Okay.
How did you feel at the 6?
I didn't see too much of a difference, honestly, between the 4 to the 6. I personally didn't see it as being, to me, I didn't get the side effects that I would from something like Tren. I found it to be definitely dry. I found it to be like a drier version of EQ. Like EQ gets me real vascular, makes me feel really full. And I felt those things, but I felt drier than I did when I was on EQ. When I used it the first time, it was for a contest prep, and I ran it all the way in, and I was really dry, really hard. In fact, I've got a couple pictures here. I'll send them over to you. You can see I just pulled them up off of the Facebook, and I'll post them up here too for our listeners. But yeah, honestly, man, I didn't see it as being like a really harsh or strong compound in any way. Although I will say that I did get acne from it. Now, keep in mind here, too, this was my second contest ever. So I was very, very slight in size. But I was peeled, though. Absolutely peeled, though. I was very lean.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it being beneficial going into a comp, definitely.
Yeah.
I like you say, it doesn't aromatize. So dryness, hardness, vascularity all seem to be traits with this drug very much.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be interested. It's not a drug that I've seen tons and tons of anecdotal feedback off, so I'd be interested to hear what the viewers, listeners, what do we call them, by the way?
Well, we do have viewers and we have listeners, so let's encourage both, especially the viewers, our YouTube people. If you guys have used DHB, aka one test sip, leave us a comment in the down below. Let us know, what your experience is.
Let us know how you got on with it, because I'm always keen to hear a broader spectrum of what people think of it.
Yeah, check your phone, Dave. I sent you over 4 pictures This was I posted this before in another show, I think, that when we talked about DHB. Like I said, I was 173 pounds at the time of this show, but this was using what's that?
Fat bastard.
This was using DHB at 400 milligrams. I was also using Test, I think, at 500, and then I threw in some Winstrol toward the end too at 50 every day for the last, I think, 21 days. So it was definitely a hard look. What had happened was I had tried Tren before, and I had a lot of side effects from it. I didn't want to use that again, so I decided, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna see if there's something else that will work. So I used this instead. Like I said, I got pretty hard from it, and I didn't get the side effects that I would have expected from something like a Tren. I didn't get any of the aggression or the insomnia that you would think. You don't get.
It's not those. What I've sort of seen with people is there's not really an aggression. There's not really the insomnia. There's not really the appetite crash or those sort of things. Mm-hmm. It's more a general feeling of being run down.
Okay, now that I did feel but I can't tell why. You know what I mean?
Because you were comp.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Yeah.
You've got quite big calves in this picture.
Thanks. Yeah, you should see them now, man. And I filled the top of the leg out, so the rest of the leg, doesn't look silly with the calves.
Calves look huge in that second picture.
Yeah, thanks, man.
That front on in the garden.
Yeah.
It's just something you don't really see very often these days. So
I'll show you a shot of where they're at now. That they've always been pretty good, but they're now, and like I said, now I filled the rest of the leg out. But yeah, we had somebody comment because we talked a little bit about it, and I wrote that in the notes that we talked about DHB. But they were like, "Hey, you guys didn't talk enough about it," so I figured I'd bring it back up and maybe do the topic some justice. Definitely not something that you would suggest to a newbie, I'm thinking.
No. I mean, I'd look at dosing it per shot at 100 mg. I wouldn't really go much above that. Yeah. Keep it in the 300-400 mg a week range. But yeah, I mean, I think when you start getting higher doses, you'll start, and maybe that's just where bulk of, because obviously most people that come to me with problems anyway. So okay. I sometimes do get a little bit more of the negative side of things rather than a full overview of what everybody experiences with certain drugs.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd be interested to see people that have had a positive experience about it, because to be honest, you're sort of one of the first people that have really said that they found it really good.
Yeah, I mean, it was decent. Like I said, I did get acne from it. That was can't remember if it was the first or second time I ran it. I think it was the second time when I pushed it up to 600. But there were other factors along with that too. I think I was running more tests. I know that I was working at a job where I sweat a lot, and I'm sure there were a lot of factors. Would I run it again? I don't know. I feel like there are only so many options out there for compounds. I don't think I need it, by any means. But I can see the allure, I think, becomes that you're like, well, I've tried everything. What else is there to try? I think people get that going in their head, Yeah,
I mean, I think it definitely has a place in comp prep.
Yeah,
I think I could see that working. I definitely think I'm not convinced so much on off season.
Yeah,
but then off season, I much prefer to run the lowest stressful impacting drugs there are.
That makes sense too. That does.
That's that. With diet, you can't really avoid that, unfortunately. So you just need stuff in there that's going to get you nice and hard and peeled. But off season, I like to keep things as stress free as possible.
All right, I'll move on here. See what else we have from our feed. Does having a family history of high incidence of cancer make it risky to use GH?
Yes.
How so?
Because it'll accelerate the growth massively.
So it's not going to give you cancer if you don't have it, but if you have a chance of getting, gosh, man, I told you, Dave, off air about a guy I know who was diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer, and I know for certain that he was really big into growth, really big into IGF. He's not a friend of mine. He's just someone I know, and I feel bad for him and for his family, and to think.
A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, has half his stomach removed through cancer. And he was using growth at the time, and through his own admittance, he says the doctors were astounded at how rapidly the cancer spread. and he swears blind it was the growth. And it's well known that if you have cancer, growth is going to really make it, spread quick.
Cancer loves IGF. It loves it.
So if you've got a history of cancer, the problem with cancer is, you can have it for a year and not be diagnosed with it and be completely symptom free, and it might be a small growth that's just slowly but surely expanding, and then you stick a cycle of growth in, and before you know it, it's 10 times the size it was in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one, but yes, growth will accelerate the growth rate of cancer without doubt. I don't think there's much in the way of evidence of it's causing cancer without some sort of predetermining factor there.
Yeah.
But I mean, the friend I'm talking about, he lost his daughter to cancer. He lost his dad to cancer. His sister's got cancer. So it's obviously a genetic predisposition in his family, which he wasn't aware of, at the time.
Yeah. Because
everybody else's cancer problems came post his.
Oh, okay, I see. Wow.
But yeah, it's so. I would say there's definitely an increased risk element there.
Okay. Phil Walker, we talked a little bit about this, and possibly one of the other podcasts. PEDs specifically for joint and tendon support.
Well, the main one's Deca at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It depends on your situation. For argument's sake, if you had low test, then testosterone, bring your testosterone levels and estrogen levels up to normal ranges, is going to help with joint issues if you're suffering joint issues because of low hormones.
Oh, yeah.
So low estrogen is going to cause joint issues. Low progesterone is going to cause joint issues. So Deca has been shown time and time again to be very useful in that side of things with collagen synthesis, and also it's affected the progesterone receptor as well, because it acts a bit like a proglastin. For those that don't know, proglastin is basically a compound that mimics progesterone.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons why Tren is as impacting as it is because it has a very strong proglastin effect, which actually doesn't trigger the progesterone receptor in the same way the progesterone would. And it's one of the reasons why you get prolactin issues with Tren. It's quite complex, but progesterone actually stops prolactin. Progestins actually increase prolactin.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm going way off here. So I said proglastins, and I actually meant progestins, so I apologize for pronouncing that totally incorrectly.
Aluminium. I'm trying to learn here, Dave. Also, you know what else? Anavar.
What about Anavar?
It's good for connective tissue building.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, if I was looking at connective tissue support, I'd be looking more peptides.
Yeah? Like what? BPC?
Like BPC, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd go more that route than go the gear route.
So I told you what happened to my shoulder. I had a partial rupture in one of my tendons. I started 200 Deca, and I started 25 Anavar. The Anavar, obviously, I'm only going to do that short term because you're not going to run Anavar long term, but I figure I'll do it for a good month. And, just the Deca, low dose, and I'll probably run that longer term. Along with that, I'm doing BPC, and I think I'm doing that a little bit on the high end. I'm taking about 1,000 milligrams a day right now.
No, I'd say that's probably bang on.
Okay. I figured a lot of people like it lighter than that.
Yeah, but I found it's one of them that if you can afford more, run more.
Yeah. So I put I got a bunch of it.
Effect off dose, yeah.
And I plan on doing that for, at least a good 8 weeks. And then from our sponsor, True Nutrition, I have 2 products. I don't have one down here. But one product, believe it or not, it's called UC2. Undenatured collagen type 2. So if you use regular collagen, which I also have, so I'm using, and I've talked about this on some of the other shows, but this product, it's called J-Flex, and it contains a bunch of good stuff that's healthy for your joints, including this UC2. And then I'm also using the hydrolyzed beef collagen, which it's just a scooper, like just collagen powder. and I'm using 1 scoop a day, which is 29 grams of protein, really high in glycine, but that's type 1 and type 3. And then this UC2 is type 2. So I'm hitting it from all angles. I plan on taking those things long term. Like, I plan on doing that now after this scare with my shoulder. Who knows what else I could rupture at 43. So I'm going to continue on those things long term. The DECA, shorter term, BPC.
The only problem I see with that is it's very difficult to know what's doing what.
Yeah, but here's the deal. I know that they all work, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to take them all. And then I figure the Anavar I'm only going to take for this first month, and then I'll stop that. The DECA I'll probably take for at least 8 weeks at 200, and then I'll decide on what I want to do with that. The over-the-counter health supplements, I'll take those probably long-term, continue on with those. The BPC, I'll eventually taper off of that, but I have enough to do that for a couple of months too. Just to try to jumpstart it,
Be interesting to see what happens as you start to drop compounds.
Yeah.
More so than anything else. Unless you're proper fucked, it's going to improve things.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see if you see a decline or a change when you drop out, say, Anavar. Do you see any difference there? Or when you drop out DECA, do you see any difference there?
Yeah.
So keep us posted, John Scott.
I sure shall. Yeah, so far I feel good. I slowly started working back in. I had one actual heavy chest workout now. It's been a month since it happened. And at this point, I've been able to do one heavy chest workout. The rest, I did 3 workouts before that were light. So I'll keep you guys posted for sure. Let's see. Question from Grace here. She says, why do some bikini competitors get voice and facial bone structure changes? Can Primo do this to some women? I know that when I was taking 10 milligrams of Anavar 2 times a day, I got a little bit more of a husky voice, but I was also overdosing during a build.
Okay. Person dependent to a large degree as to how much virilization will affect a female. I know females that run a couple hundred meg of test a week and they get very little virilization. I know women that will get virilization on 20 meg of Anavar a day. So it is very person dependent, but effectively virilization comes from drugs and dose and duration. So the longer you're on, the higher the dose, the more virilization you're going to see. Certain drugs are not as susceptible to it. So Primo is the usual one as when it comes to injectables that women like because it doesn't give huge amounts of virilization. DECA is another one that's quite good in that region. Obviously, your test does give high virilization. So it really is down to how long is a piece of string. There's so many variables here on the person themselves, the dosage they run, the duration they run. But yes, Primo can. It's not a case of Primo doesn't cause. It can cause virilization. Anavar can cause virilization.
Sure.
All the anabolic hormones can. They all have the possibility for virilization. And it's just down to the individual and how much they take and how long they run it for as to whether it affects them in that way or not.
Yeah. And then 2, it's about balance. So where's your estrogen level at? If you're going to do something to crank down your estrogen level, then any androgen is going to have more potential of causing an issue. Something I wasn't...
Yes, something where Anavar ramps up the longer you're on. So when you first start Anavar, it's not too bad. When you start getting past week 8, that's when you start to see changes become more rapid because it's when the decline in estrogen is becoming more and more prominent. Now, females are a bit more flexible hormonally than males for the simple reason of they have a hormone cycle, so their body's used to having very high and very low levels of hormone. And their adrenal gland produces a fair amount of their hormones, and their tissue converts a fair amount of their hormones as well, and they can reverse, so for want of a better term, reverse engineer their hormones. So they can change hormones back into precursors and vice versa.
I didn't know that.
Men aren't quite as flexible as that. So we very much are based around our testosterone.
Okay.
Whereas when women, when they take anabolics, will shut down their HPTO in the same way we shut down our HPTA.
Yeah.
But that's only producing a portion of their hormone production. So they still have hormone production in other areas.
Yeah.
So obviously, only women rely on test as much as men do. And all female estrogen will have been tested at some point. But they've got tests coming out of the adrenal gland as well, and they've got 50% of their testes converted in tissue. So they have much more flexibility in filling holes, but long term on something like Anavar is eventually going to lead to estrogen issues, which will then, the lower of an estrogen is only going to increase the valorization ability of that compound. Where, you know, running something like a very low dose of D-bol, you're going to have higher levels of estrogen and you're going to maintain a more neutral balance in hormones there, but you've got to keep it super low. And the problem then is keeping it super low doesn't give you the anabolic building effect that you would if you were running 20, 30 meg of Anavar.
Sure. Victoria had an interesting theory that she said she's actually seen help. That she's talked about how hydration can play a role in the thickening of the vocal cords. And that,
know about that
through balancing minerals, that she's actually seen people be able to slightly reverse it. They've had, so I don't think she goes around and talks about that publicly, but it's something that she's experimented with and she's seen some results with. So she wouldn't want to say it publicly because she wouldn't want to put her name to it and say that it was a fact. You know what I mean? But
it's interesting. It's very interesting. I've noticed that old 80s female bodybuilders and 90s female bodybuilders that I knew, not knew well, but knew of and were around at the time when they were competing. And a couple of them had particularly deep voices, voices that you would even say were deep for a man.
Wow, okay.
That they have, since their cessation of use, it's been 20 years, but slowly but surely, their voices have softened.
Wow, okay.
And though they're still probably a bit on the low side for a female, they're no longer Barry White.
Yeah.
Which is where they were going, in the early days. But I mean, obviously, that's exposure to estrogen for 20 years rather than anabolics for 5 years. And I mean, that's probably the saving grace with women, generally speaking, is that their endocrine systems are much more robust than the males, and as a result, will generally come back.
Yeah.
I mean, women do suffer from shutdown, and some women do need a little bit of a gentle nudge in the form of a mild PCT to get them back up and running post-cycle. It does depend on the individual. But in general, women do recover very, very well post-anabolic use, whereas men can be hormone reliant for the rest of the days. So as a result of that, a lot of the negative impacts in virilization can slowly start to soften with age. I don't think they all fully go. I think you'll always see a slight masculinity to at least a long-term female steroid user, even if she's not used for 15 years. But as time progresses on, it definitely does soften them down a bit, and they get less and less and a bit more back to their original female forms.
Okay. Thoughts on front-loading long esters? Is it worth it?
No.
What's your thought on that? I know this used to be a real popular idea.
I just don't see the point.
Give it another week, another 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, 24 hours after injecting blood peak.
I lost
it's
you.
It's not that you haven't got high blood concentration. I said 24 hours after injecting testinanthate or cypionate, your blood plasma levels will hit peak. You'll have a huge peak of hormone. I think the signal's gone to shit, Scott. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Right, okay. So it's not that the gear's not in your system. Now, obviously, it takes a few weeks of injections before they hit a plateau and a level that's, probably about 5, actually, before you start plateauing on your levels and they stop increasing.
Yeah.
But I don't see the point in starting a cycle by taking effectively double the dose you intend on taking.
Yeah, people used to do it all the time, man. I feel like you're setting yourself up for a lot of side effects that way.
Definitely. You can have and the body's very much a case of it, it's the harder you push it, the more it's going to push back at you.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for huge immune suppression. You're setting yourself up for about a test flu. You're setting yourself up to become toxic very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And a toxicity that you're not going to recover from till after the cycle. So you end up being much more stressed throughout the cycle.
Yeah.
And what I don't understand with people is So they have this argument that it takes 3-4 weeks for a drug to get in the system and start showing effects. But then when it comes to the other end of it, I'm off cycle now, so it's done.
Yeah.
Well, if it took 3-4 weeks to get in, it's going to be 3-4 weeks before it gets out.
Yeah.
So what difference does it make? You just have it at the other end of the cycle.
Right.
Why is that? But, oh no, so it takes me 3-4 weeks for it to start working, but as soon as I do my last shot the next day, that's it, I'm off.
Yeah.
It just doesn't add sense. No, it's the same way front loading with orals. Unless you have a specific reason because you're trying to get a specific amount of gear in a specific window of time.
Yeah.
It's like I knew guys that worked offshore.
Oh, yeah.
So they'd do 3 weeks offshore, 3 weeks onshore.
Mm-hmm.
So what they would do is they would front load with orals or fast acting and shove a slows in, because basically from the moment they go offshore, they can't inject again. So they wanted their peaks as fast and as high as they could. So they had 3 weeks of high levels because they had 3 weeks of fuck all.
Oh, wow.
So I know guys that have done it for specific reasons like that. But in general, just let it take its course.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple more here. Well, we have one more that we'll take, and then after that we'll go to we have a personal question. We'll go to this one first, though. Carl Lenore, he says, any value to low dose trenbolone as part of your TRT or HRT plan, and how would you get? How low were you when you won't get sides, like sleep disruption or loss of cardio?
I wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you would want to even consider it.
I think he tried it. I think I've heard of people trying it, like replacing their test with Tren. It's still TRT, Dave. Tren replacement therapy.
Maybe this is me, and I know as I've got older, I'm probably starting to sound a bit more like a broken record. But to me, that's like getting a diesel truck and I'm going to put petrol in it and see how that works. TRT is hormone replacement. That's what it stands for, testosterone replacement therapy.
Or Tren replacement therapy. There's that.
Don't be silly now, Scott. So you're replacing your testosterone because that's the base hormone your body works on.
With nitro.
Tren has just nothing in common. It doesn't aromatize. So to try and run Tren as a TRT is going to result in low estrogen. It's going to result in all sorts of horrible, nasty problems.
He does say as part.
Yes. If you're going to run it with test, I just don't see where you're considering the benefit from that.
It's more androgenic. You could get more growth, more strength. I wonder, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, Dave. What if you just put in, let's say, 25 milligrams twice a week?
Why?
To get some more strength in the gym.
Go on a cycle.
Be a little bit more of an asshole to people around you. Just a little bit, though. Just you want to be a little bit meaner.
Just be friends with you. That makes you a little bit meaner and a little bit more of an asshole.
Thank you. He said it. He said that he's friends with me.
No, I didn't say I was. I just said be friends with you. I didn't say I was. Don't be putting words into my mouth here, Scott. This is a semi-professional relationship.
And a semi-friendship relationship.
Hate-ship. Dislike-ship.
That all relates to our next question, but we'll finish up here first.
I'm struggling to understand the logic here. I understand we all want to be bigger, we all want to be stronger. But I just don't understand why you would consider using the world's harshest anabolic for that process. Do a cycle with a controlled management environment. I mean, the thing is as well, we have no idea what, say, 50 milligram of Tren for 52 weeks is going to do to somebody.
Yeah, that's true.
But once it's done, we know what Tren does.
Mm-hmm.
We know how it affects the brain. We know how it affects the cerebellum. We know how it affects the amygdala. We know how its progestin action causes major problems with prolactin, and how it increases estrogen sensitivity. That's the other thing. You'll never be able to test your estrogen while you're on tour. You would, but you have to get a specific test. And so we know it has all these impacting things. So knowing that, I've got to start to ask, is it really worth the benefits you're going to get out of 50 meg a week for putting something in that can potentially cause a lot of it might not, 50 meg a week, 100 meg a week, you might be perfectly fine in 12 months, but we don't know.
Yeah.
And some drugs at high doses have the same effects at small doses for long periods of time. And some drugs you can take low doses for your rest of life and they'll never cause you a problem, but as soon as you go high, it's going to fuck you up. So I really don't know, but I just don't see enough of a benefit to want to do it.
Okay. Okay. Barry Kitchen asks us on the YouTube. He says in the last episode, he says, quick question for both of you guys, actually. It has nothing to do with steroids or supplements. You guys seem to have great chemistry, and I was just wondering, when did you guys meet? And how did you guys meet? It seems like you guys have known each other on a personal level, not just through the podcast or anything. It seems like you guys have actually hung out for years, like you're legitimately good friends.
I have never met Scott in person.
Nor do we plan.
Nor do I ever want to. We originally met 4.5 years ago.
Yeah. You were the second interview that I did I think you were like episode 2 of Advices Radio.
And it was for UC. And then we've done...
UC2.
Yeah, we've done a couple of odd ones since then, haven't we? I did one with you and Scott, I think, one day. And
yep, and we did another one for the segment I call Huge as Fuck.
Yes. And then it was someone else that, almost taking the piss, said, why don't you two do a podcast?
Did they?
Yeah, someone mentioned it. Someone suggested it. And I think they were just taking the piss, really. And then I said to you, what do you think? And you went, yeah, why not?
Let's give it a try. Yeah. You joined Dr. Scott and I. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And then they're like, why don't
someone
you...
said something. I think someone said after that episode, why don't you and Dave do a podcast? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've regretted it ever since.
Every week. So we normally record this show on Tuesdays. I couldn't
face him yesterday.
Recording Wednesday. I was prepared to do the show. I got ready. I got everything set up. And then Dave was like, oh, I don't feel so well. And I was like, thank God. I thought I had the week off.
It's as I get close to Tuesday, and it's 4:30 my time, UK time, that we record. By about 3:00, I'm getting really stressed, and I don't feel very well, and I get quite anxious and
I get nauseous.
And upset. Yeah, I get nauseous. I know I've got to talk to this prick for an hour and a half. As the show's gone on, we've got more natural. We have got more natural with each other.
We've gotten better at faking it,
Yeah. We used to talk over each other. Well, I used to talk over you a lot, should I still say, which I still do. I'm terrible for it.
You're good at it. You're better at it now, I think. We have a better, back and forth.
Well, the thing is, to just turn around and say, Dave, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I just put you on mute. Half the time I put you on mute.
I've noticed that. I have also noticed that when you edit it, there's a lot of footage seems to disappear.
It's just the parts where you're talking.
Yeah.
I just cut those out. It's basically just me, and I'm like, hey, Dave, aren't I so funny? And then I let you talk for like 10 seconds.
That's so generous.
Yeah. What I've been doing is for the video,
masturbating.
Well, that too, but that's besides the point. If we have a lot of banter at the beginning, for the video version, I cut that because people don't want to hear us talking about the weather. Some people might want to, but
I think from the feedback from the last show, I think people are also starting to enjoy our relationship.
So you would term it as a relationship, you're saying now?
Well, it's like a professional agreement, isn't it? I mean, I'm contracted. I have no fucking choice. If I don't do this, I get in trouble. The court ordered it as part of my punishment. I've got no choice. This is classed as community service, if you didn't realise. All right, this is instead of going to prison, I have to sit here and talk this bollocks with him.
Oh, that would be a great podcast. That'd be really good. We could set that up with the court system in the UK or something. I think it's a funny old podcast, this. Yeah, we have fun with it. We appreciate you guys watching. And once again, because we haven't taken a lot of questions on the YouTube. I wonder, we might actually have one. I told a guy he could comment. We did get a lot. It's whilst, not whistle. Dave is correct.
I can't believe you got hammered so hard for that.
I know. I know. People really got upset about that one. People suspected that maybe the oral Trenbolone positive was from like the pro hormone Halidrol. We didn't even speculate there.
Yeah, but it's still effectively taking T-ball, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, a pro hormone is a precursor, so it converts. So it's effectively taking the drug.
Yeah. Oh,
there's an old saying, isn't it? If it smells like shit and looks like shit, it most likely is shit.
Yes, that saying. We did have one on the thread I didn't get to here. This is from Brendan Smith. He says, IGF-LR3 question, would it be more beneficial to just run HGH?
I think so.
I think you can get...
People may disagree with me. I think so.
You can get better... You can better source high-quality GH, I think. Like, I've seen a lot of IGF-LR3 that's hit or miss.
Well, the way I would... I'll put this into a terminology that I understand. Okay? Why buy a packet of Skittles with just only the orange Skittles in, so you miss all the other colours, therefore have less in the packet? Why not buy, which is the old IGF-LR3, why not buy the full packet with all the colours in, because then you've got more Skittles and more flavours to choose from?
What if you don't like the purple ones?
What element of growth are you saying you don't like?
The purple ones.
The purple growth?
Yeah, the purple ones.
What's wrong with the purple ones?
I don't know. I know.
Colorist you are.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here. I have to drink more water, Dave. I've only drinking 2 of these today. I want to try to get it. I've got 40 minutes before I have to have my hematocrit tested. And then they're going to... Yeah.
So what you're trying to do is actually fake your results.
No. I want to get my blood
Are you trying to hyperhydrate so that you get lower hemo when you get tested?
No. Because it's going to be high. I was at 55. And Corey says, thanks, lads. Thank you, Corey, for watching. They're going to test it. I'm going to get blood taken today. But I want to be as super hydrated as possible so that it comes out of me fast enough. I don't want it to be too thick and take forever. I want the veins to be...
Well, just use a big needle, you big gay lord.
That's 16, I believe. That's big enough.
Yeah, 16 is a great needle.
I hate needles, Dave.
How can you be a competitive bodybuilder and a long-term steroid user and hate needles?
I don't like IV needles. That's what it is. I'm okay with IM, sub-Q. I can do that all the time, but IV needles gross me out, especially at 16 gauge.
Them 16s are big, aren't they?
Ooh, all right, guys.
It's like someone shoving a ballpoint pen in your arm.
On that note, I'm going to go get some more water. Dave Crossland. Guys, if you want to check out Dave, go over to crosslands.org.uk. Check him out. Of course, you can find either of us on social media, Facebook and Instagram. And check out our sponsors, TrueNutrition.com. Get Azoth, that's AZOTH.com. And, of course, for you guys, you chaps, you blokes over there in the UK, supplementdeeds.co.uk. Dave Crossland, I'd like to say it's a pleasure, but...
You're contractually obliged to do so.
Yes. It's been a pleasure, Dave.
All right, till next week. Ugh.